So as a mech warrior, when do you hit that eject button? Tactically speaking, when has your mech taken so much damage on the table, it's no longer operationally effective? And maybe you're playing with the force withdrawal rules, or maybe like most of my Battletech games, the way we play is you just fight it out to the bitter end and let's see who's standing. So there comes this time where you need to make a decision, especially if you're playing a campaign where you've got salvage, you've got repair, you've got time constraints. When is your mech no longer going to be able to effectively put up a fight? And when the heck do you get out of there? Just how much damage can you take? That's what we're going to explore. That's the checklist that we're going to look to build. And naturally, this changes over the different tonnage for various mechs. I think we're really looking at medium mechs, the mediums and the medium heavies, and assaults. Light mechs, they get hit with a PPC, a large laser, a couple other shots, and they just kind of crumble. They just can't take, they're light mechs, they just can't take the damage that other machines can. But especially as soon as you get into the heavies and the assaults, you can take tremendous amounts of damage. So this idea of how damage transfers in Battletech, it works from the limbs moving into the center torso. Generally, if we're talking inner sphere, most mechs, now there's examples that break it everywhere, but we're looking at most mechs. As soon as you lose your arms, this is where we see the first drop-off and I'm talking about completely blown off. This is where we see the first drop-off in firepower, because most mechs, based on the configuration, will have their primary weapons. I mean, think about a Battlemaster PPC in the arm. Think about the Awesome in the arm. Now, it also has it in the left torso and right torso. We've got the Wolverine, the AC-10. Most of the mechs have their primary weapon or a pair of primary weapons in their arms. Think about the Rifleman, and I like the Rifleman, I do. He's got massive heat issues. I almost wonder if a variant would be better just putting the autocannons on, dropping the large laser. I mean, you can really only fire one, but then it's called a Jaeger mech or kind of a blackjack. There's other mechs. But think about, as an example, a Rifleman gets its arm blown off. You've lost those weapons. It gets both of its arms blown off. You've lost those weapons. So immediately, the survivability of getting your arm blown off, the mech is still survivable. You're still up. You're still good. But that's going to start cutting into your firepower. Now, how the damage transfers. So let's say I get my right arm blown off, and now it's going to start transferring into the right torso. The challenge here, we begin to look, because the configurations for the inner sphere mechs are all over the place. What's located in that right torso? In the case of an Awesome, as an example, you've got a PPC. So as damage transfers, as it opens up, well, that just means that PPC is going to get trashed. But I got nothing else in there. You might lose another weapon. But if you've got ammo, that's a major problem. And we see some mechs that have the ammo contained, or ideally an inner sphere mech is going to have the ammo in the center torso. But then we've got a couple of weird mechs where it's like, I've got machine guns in my right hand, and you read the tech manuals, and for some reason the ammo bin's in the left arm, and it just crosses, the feed mechanism crosses over the entire mech, and it's like routed around the fusion reactor, and the feed hopper goes up into the pilot's cockpit, and I mean, just a little bit of an exaggeration, but there are places where ammo's located where you're like, that doesn't make much sense. Can we like retrofit that? So that's the first question. After the arms get blown off, what's in that left torso? What's in that right torso? That's going to depend on the survivability. The transfer from the side torsos to the center torso, things pick up as damage transfers. But regarding the weight class, even if it's a medium mech, heavy mech, assault mech, you've got the most bulk. You've got the most bulk there with what it can absorb. But you also have the most internals. And as soon as it transfers, or as soon as if you've taken center torso damage directly that goes to internals, I mean, it happens, This is really the first death blow to a mech, because now every time you get hit, there's going to be a chance for a crit, and that crit is going to be the engine, it's going to be the gyro, it might be ammo, and surprisingly, once you have your torso, left torso, right torso, center torso opened up to internals, the challenge isn't so much getting hit by a PPC, assuming you have the internal armor bubbles to absorb that, because that's a chance for one crit. The threat comes from bursts, multiple short-range missiles hitting you on there, multiple chances to confirm critical hits, multiple small machine gun hits, lots and lots of little weapons. You know, we explored the Charger last week, this really, really fast assault mech that I use for the lulls to kind of run up the flank and punch you, and it has the armor. But it's also kind of a crit-seeking monster with all those small lasers. And someone had posted their mech creation in the comments, and it was some sort of variant medium mech. I got to go back. It was kind of intriguing. It's got like 20 small lasers, or well, maybe that's an exaggeration. Maybe it was like 12 small lasers. 12 small lasers with speed as a crit seeker. That's interesting, because the more shots, the more chances to hit that exposed internals, the more chances to roll for crit, the more chances to damage your engine or your gyros. So as soon as the center opens up, this is really getting towards the end. Engine hits are going to affect heat. That's going to cut down on your firepower. Gyro hits are going to potentially cut down on your mobility. Things are going to crumble really, really, really fast at that point. That's the damage transfer. Now, we leave headshots out because they can happen in Battletech. Most mechs, excluding lights, can take a shot to the head. It'll go to internals at some point. There is a chance for a critical. You might be killed outright. You might have to take a consciousness check with the pilot. I mean, there's a lot of what ifs. 2 hits, you get your head blown off. That's, I don't want to say rare in Battletech, but it happens less on the 2d6 spread of the dice. Let's look at the legs, because this is where things get interesting, depending on how and where your legs get blown off. So the key with mechs, of course, is mobility. And as you take damage to your legs, it's not so much that the damage is going to transfer up, because it will. What happens is when you lose a leg, now you're going to potentially, you're going to go prone. You can prop yourself up. You can stand back up on one leg. You can stay prone and move around. Remember that prone bonus in terms of if your opponent is shooting at you based on their position. But the challenge now here becomes is essentially your mobility is out and done. So if you get a leg blown off and you're outside of the mission goals, maybe the mission goal is like run to the center of the map and secure the midpoint, because that's where the mobile HQ that you want to capture is. You get blown off with your leg on the far end of that hex map, you're going to be out of range for most of the action. Maybe you've got an LRM-20 you could fire off, or something extremely long range like an AC-2, but there's not that much that's going to happen, so your opponent could ignore you. I would ignore you at that point. You can crawl along all you want. You're not going anywhere. The best place to lose a leg, if it has to happen, is right in the action, right on the mission objectives. So this way, again, the scenario, like if there's a mobile HQ in the center of the map, and that's where we have to be, and I run up there with my Wolverine, and I'm fighting, and the leg gets blown off, I'm still in the game, literally. Now, I'm just going to get stomped, I'm going to get kicked, it's going to be pretty crazy. I mean, I'm not in a good position, but I can still utilize my initiative turn. I'm still a threat, even if I'm a medium with 2 or 3 weapons. If I'm a heavy or an assault, I'm still a threat. I'm still in the game. So the question is, as you start to take damage to your legs and you start to move potentially to internals in the legs, and internally you can take some damage before it gets blown off, that's going to slow down your walking or running, maybe make you take a pilot check if you run, different scenarios depending on the terrain and what's going on. The challenge becomes almost where, as my leg gets damaged and we go to internals, I need to start thinking aggressively. I need to move up. I might need to move a little bit ahead of the rest of the lance, so if I drop, I'm at least dropping in a good place. I don't want to drop on the back of the map. Now, of course, tactically, it might be better if your leg gets damaged and you have the range, this idea of the Wolverine. I've got that autocannon, I've got a little bit of range, I've got the lasers, maybe I've got some medium range on there. If I can get behind a building and try to literally block off the legs, obviously, tactically, you're going to take advantage and see what's there. So I'd rather run to the building, hide behind the building, hide behind the elevation, be able to shoot some stuff, push that out there, and completely protect my legs. I mean, you're not just going to stand around. You need to look for the terrain and how it interacts with your mech. But all things being equal, if there's nothing I can really gain by that, then I do want to move up. I do want to be aggressive. So at least, again, if I drop, I've got a little bit of a threat. I've got a little bit of something. So back to the original question. As a mech warrior, when do you hit that ejection button? Or is it just better to die with your mech? Who wants to join the ranks of the dispossessed? You're never going to get a mech back.